Hello and welcome to this episode of Minnesota Drummer. I'm your host, Paul the Rod Rodney, and on this episode, I am featuring Alec Tackmann, the man behind the beats. So, Alec, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I almost called you Alan all of a sudden. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I respond to many variations of Alec.
Hey, dude, whatever.
Yeah.
So, how you been doing? This is great. This is the first time you and I have actually had an opportunity to talk.
Yeah. I suppose we only corresponded over, email.
Yeah.
But it's been good. It's kind of this, bizarre freezing weather we're having outside, but it's good.
It's a weird 2020. Supposed to be 2020 is supposed to be insight, right? But this is a year we're just gonna, check off and throw away.
Yeah. We'll get a redo hopefully or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, maybe let's talk about that quickly for a little bit. How has COVID obviously impacted your career? Are you able to perform and give lessons and such?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of bizarre, I mean, for everyone, obviously, but, back in April when people kind of first started buzzing about it and a gig here and there gets canceled and then they all kind of toppled within a couple of days. I mean, we all, just went through all that. And so the gigs all went out the window for me and even the ones that have kind of popped up here and there, I just kind of passed on them. I just don't want to, I'm almost kind of, as far as gigging goes, just going to kind of take this as a kind of a little sabbatical almost, so, so that whole thing has been just kind of bizarre to not have like a gig coming up always and not have something to have to work up to or maintain chops and practice. It's been nice, for my own practicing to just, it's I feel like I'm a teenager again. I'm just practicing whatever I feel like. And, with no, there's no, gig to study for or whatever. And then the big thing has been, for me, the biggest change has been the students. I've had about, 40 to 50 students a week coming over to my house and doing lessons. And that was tough to tell them all, sorry, we got to switch to video chat and get used to doing all that. And and most of them have stuck around for it, but a lot of them said, we're gonna take a pause and all that. So basically, I went from 6-7 days a week, if you count rehearsals and all that stuff, to 3.
Wow.
Yeah, of just musical stuff. So this is a bizarre summer, and it's my house, a lot of painting, gardening, that kind of stuff, a lot of biking. It's been nice to find other things, but yeah, career-wise, it's been a total 180. And I was kind of getting burnt out anyway, I think.
Oh, okay.
So it was, and if I can kind of find a silver lining, it's this is a nice break, really. It's forced, and it's not a good break. Obviously, thousands and thousands of people are dying, and it's terrible. But I just, for me personally, it's okay, this is just kind of a big retreat. I'll kind of think of it as, and hopefully something cool grows out of this for everyone. I mean, lessons will just probably go back like normal, but I'm really curious to see what becomes of the whole live industry. How many venues survive? What's traveling going to be like? How people are going to be receptive to it?
Right.
I think it'll take a while for people to want to come back to shows. So I don't know. There's so many mysteries.
Well, it's my belief that we're gonna have a tough financial future, especially with the government bailouts and all that kind of stuff, and how they're paying for things, and and how business has been affected overall. But I'm hoping what's going to happen is that people are going to want to go see bands live again. Because when I was younger, when bands would play, it was always sold out. And now, for the last 20 years, clubs have really been sold out a whole lot for the most part.
Yeah. I like to believe that there will be some kind of, on the other end of it, people will miss it and appreciate it more. And probably in a lot of ways, a lot of things, just in life in general. But I want to believe that, people will come back strong. I would like to believe also that you'll see, people being pretty generous with tipping. even at like restaurants for like servers and that kind of stuff too. So it's just looking like it's going to take way longer than we all thought. I mean, I definitely thought kind of when this all began, even talking to my students, it was like, this might be a month or two, and it's September already, kind of thing. So
I know.
Yeah.
No end in sight. Now, how many gigs a year do you normally do? What do you say?
About, I would say 80 to 100.
Okay.
Yeah. I say at the peak, it was like 200. That's
Wow.
when it was, that was full time with Davina and the Vagabonds. That was a loaded calendar, but now I'd say 80 to 100. Just guessing off the top of my head. Busier in the summer usually,
Okay.
But yeah.
How many gigs have you played this year, like from between January and I'm assuming April?
Boy, very few. So this one, Galactic Cowboy Orchestra, had a few. I think I did some with Jenn Bostic. I played with the Pops Orchestra in Rochester down here, and I think we got in one. I can't remember. It was already kind of a quiet winter, and then it was kind of bizarre. Like I was looking at my summer calendar, like, oh god, this is going to be a crazy one, and then they all went away, But yeah, January, I'd have to look at the calendar. It was pretty tame actually, just right before that. But I don't know. Now it's extra tame. I don't know. But
well, who are some of the artists that you've worked with over the last couple of years that people may have seen you play in live?
So I would say my main gig for the last 5 years, I think, has been as the Galactic Cowboy Orchestra, which has been weird to have like a band that's such an obscure style of music be the main thing. And that's kind of like we'll just kind of blanket call it a fusion band. We call it jazz rock because we're imitating kind of like the 70s style of, just like loud jazz kind of thing almost. But been playing with them primarily. I play with an artist sorry, go ahead.
Just having for 1 second now. There's a lot of Minnesota drummers who have played in that band. Can you name some of those drummers?
There's Billy Thomas was before me, and Mark O'Day was before that. So I'm
O'Day. Okay.
Yep, I'm number 3. So yeah,
all great players. That's what stands out about that band to me is that you're all great players.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, like joining that band is funny. Like I'd seen them before, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And John, the bass player, randomly called me one night, and I remember it was like 12:30, after midnight, and I see a 612 number, and I'm like, this has got to be a band. Like, if someone needs a drummer, like, hello. And then so we chatted for a couple hours. It was cool, and yeah, it was crazy joining that group because it was like, well, I don't play odd meters. This is some far out stuff. I don't know how I'm gonna like learn all this. Billy has played for who's who, and Mark is on most of the recordings, and his stuff is crazy, and he's playing solos over all these odd meters, and as I was kind of telling John, like, yeah, I'll try, I'll do my best. And I think I've kind of maybe changed the sound of the band a little bit I guess I don't know how I can describe it. I think I'm definitely looser, not calling them, tight, but I'm when I'm playing that kind of stuff, I get kind of sloppy. So the band feels a little more like we're hanging on, I feel like, which was maybe an adjustment for them. But
so the plus is if you go to see you guys live, you never know if you're going to fall apart or not.
Yeah.
Well, there's a plus.
yeah. And we're definitely like riding that line all the time. And I'm always like, I usually will bring a GoPro to the shows and watch them back. And, I'll post little things here and there, but I usually after the show, I come home and I'll watch it back, like watching the plays or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, I rushed that song like crazy, or I pushed the stuff. Like, it's really hard to keep all those notes tight and clean. It's work every time, and it's Yeah, by the end of the show, it's the most like physically challenging music I've played. Like at the end of the show, I'm spent. You know, I'm breathing hard. I'm sweaty. It's not a layback gig at all.
Well, later on, we're going to be playing the song 21st Century. Isn't that from you guys?
Yep, that's with us. Yep.
So you, the viewers, are going to be able to check out his playing with that band and see what he's talking about. It's phenomenal playing. I have not seen you live. I need to do that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully.
Very cool video.
Thanks. Thank you.
So again, who are some of the other artists that you've worked with recently?
Sure. So there's an artist out of Nashville named Jenn Bostic I play with, and I met her at Berklee. She's originally from Minnesota, but moved down there after Berklee, and we kind of reconnected 6 or 7 years ago. And we don't do a ton of shows. Mm-hmm. I would say 10 a year, 15 a year, depending. Sometimes just acoustic stuff, sometimes full band stuff. But that's been a good, consistent one.
Are those fly-in gigs? You fly to Nashville?
I've only flown, I think, once for her. It's weird. Like it's when she comes back up here. Usually, we've done some travel. I've played down there. We did one. I can't remember the club name. We did one at the outside of the Opry Hotel for some. I can't remember, but there was one in Utah. We did. We've done a bit of traveling, but that one's usually when she comes back up here, just because she's from here.
Okay.
And picks up those ones, and she does mostly solo shows. So it's nice to, bring in the full thing every once in a while. But yeah, she's a phenomenal singer. It's art, so subjective, of course, but like she's, she's an amazing singer. It's really fun, doing that one. And then I'd say those are the two main ones. I play at the Pops Orchestra down here, and that's a seasonal thing, 4 shows a year. Occasionally, I've been playing with Annie Mac down here off and on for probably the last over 10 years now. But I haven't done a lot of shows with her recently. Maybe we're down to 5 or 10. Paul Mayasich, I started playing with him before all this stuff went down. He's a killer blues guitarist. Slide. I mean, it's like if you're into like Derek Trucks and all that stuff, he's a songwriter, guitarist, the whole thing. So it's Paul Mayasich, John Wright on bass from Galactic Cowboy Orchestra,
okay,
and it's basically that trio. We use Toby Marshall on B3 organ usually as well, but okay, that was the thing that was kind of assembling, and we were trying to get recording going, and then COVID kind of toppled that one. Okay. But a lot of fun stuff too, but.
Well, and for the audience, I was going to put this piece about you that I didn't put at the beginning of the show, which I should have done, but you live in Rochester, Minnesota.
Yep.
How long have you lived there?
So I grew up here, born and raised here, and I went away for college, went to Berklee in Boston, and then I did 1 semester in LA, just doing it like an internship down there, and then moved back here thinking, I want to get back to LA and join a touring band and try to get that whole thing going. And then Davina and the Vagabonds happened. And then it was like, well, if I could be in a touring band living out of Rochester, I'm going to do it. And, that was nuts, going all over the US and Europe and doing that thing. It was amazing. That was my first time going overseas. Okay. And then after that, it's just kind of like, it's good here. Family's here, friends are here. I can have a career. I can still travel. Plenty of people here looking for lessons. It's quality of life is good here. It's hard to justify leaving. Every once in a while we'll think about, we could maybe duck out. And it always comes down to just, you start tallying it up, every little thing that involves moving, and it's like, it's not worth it. It's cool here. So, but yeah. My wife and I like it here. It's been good.
Perfect. Well, you graduated in 2008 from Berklee in drum set performance with a master's degree. Bachelor's. Okay. Yep. Now, what was interesting to me is that you had lessons with such legendary players. Terri Lyne Carrington,
Yep.
Mike Mangini.
Yep.
What other drummers did you get lessons from while you're at Berklee?
Those two were probably the biggest name ones. A guy spent probably the brunt of my time down there. Was Rick Considine was his name.
Okay.
He lives in New York now. He doesn't teach there anymore. And Rick grew up in New York City. He didn't go to Berklee. He just learned, in New York City, just being around that. And he took lessons when he was little from this guy named Vinny Ruggiero, who's kind of like an East Coast New York legend.
Okay.
And Vinny was buddies with Philly Joe Jones, Elvin Jones, Steve Gadd, all these guys. So they'd always be coming around and hanging out. So Rick grew up getting to know these guys. So it was really cool, especially coming from, out here. Everything I'm learning is from like a VHS, and at the time, and to go out there and for him to be like, yeah, this is how you should play a ride cymbal, and I learned this from Elvin, and to have that short degree of separation, or tell me like direct stories about Gadd, and this is a thing. So that was mind blowing. That was I can't say enough good things about the lessons with him. And then about halfway through, I started also taking with Terri Lyne Carrington. That was just bonkers. Someone who's played with Herbie Hancock for over a decade at that point, and
right.
I think she's one of the best drummers on earth. And usually when you see like her name advertised, it's like Terri Lyne Carrington. She's this amazing female drummer. That was female drummer categorized. It's like no. Forget that. She's just one of the best jazz drummers, period. Like she has this amazing flow that I can't understand. We did a lot of talking with that. Mangini, we could talk about him. But just like real quick, like other names, there's a guy, Larry Finn, out there I spent a lot of time with. He was actually kind of more brought in like the marching rudimental I suppose like spin on drum set playing.
Okay.
And that was really interesting. Really kind of honing in timekeeping with him was interesting. A guy named Jackie Santos. I did a lot of labs with him. That was like his whole thing was just like groove and time and feel and just hammering that home. Real great guy. But I would say those, 4, 5, 6. Mm-hmm. Spent most of the time, and that was, I think, really the big takeaway from Berklee. I mean, it was a bachelor's degree, and you're taking conducting and arranging and all this stuff too. And a lot of people leave Berklee kind of with negative feelings about it. It can really burn you out, that place, and they got a really high dropout rate because of that. And I think your private lesson experience is kind of what makes or breaks it. And that's kind of your personal experience in there. There's like the machine, but then there's like, what teachers did you pick up along the way? And I lucked out. I found some really great ones that connected with me. I enjoyed Berklee. If I could afford it, I would do it again.
Well, so I got to ask you about Mike Mangini. He's one of my favorite drummers.
Okay, cool.
He's got, a degree in, I believe, accounting as well as electrical engineering.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you see him play, you can see he's a numbers guy. So he's always, playing like that. What was he like to study with? Yeah.
So, I didn't do anything with him until my last year. Mm-hmm. So, and I was going in, I was like, all right, I'm here to learn jazz, and I'm going to, get this jazz shredder thing down. And I was basically just like, for the first while, just like playing catch up on that. And I kind of avoided the rock teachers. And then, and eventually as I started to get like, okay, I'm a little bit jazzed out here now. I wanted, for my last year, just do some fun stuff. Mm-hmm. So I signed up for rock drumming lab with him, and then a class that you had to take polyrhythms 1 and 2. So I took all 3 of those with him. And right away in the first lesson, I was like, this guy's awesome. Like, he's so like, he's got just like a clear systematic way for everything you could ask. which was a nice contrast from, you know, the jazz realm, which was a lot of like, just feel it, man, kind of stuff. And he was like, no, if you want to do this, these are the steps to take. Super nice guy. I don't know why I was under the impression that he was gonna, I don't know. That just blew me away. Like I expected something different for some reason. I don't know why, but super nice guy, super willing to help if you're interested and care. He's just really funny. You could tell at the time he was frustrated at Berklee. So I mean, it was really cool to see him get that gig, because I knew I think he was dissatisfied just teaching, you know. But yeah, he was great, and I kind of got lucky. He just had a new baby at the time named Alec. So
cool. Yeah,
so he's like, hey, that's my new son's name, you know, and so I think that helped him remember me. But yeah, the dude, I mean, as far as like his preparation and all that, I mean, he's a total freak, because the practice hours he would do, and he would, his office hours were always open. He'd go in there and like, I remember one time he had to reschedule a class he had missed or something. And he said, but just come to my office hours at this time. I was running late to it, and I'm like trying to run to like, oh crap, I'm 15 minutes late. And then I hear drumming in the door, and I kind of try to knock on the door when the drumming stops. And then he opens the door, and it's just him in there practicing. He's like, you're the first person, like everyone else blew off the class. But he was like, well, I got 10 minutes, I'm going to practice. Mm-hmm. And like, he's all about like just like racking up every minute he possibly can. He talk about like, you know, bouncing his baby on his knee while he's working on his left hand and answering emails with his other hand. And you can tell his mind works like super, you know, buzzing all the time like that.
Right.
At the time, he was really, he's talking about like the Zeppelin reunion happened, and apparently he was kind of on a short list for that. I guess
to go see it,
to be in the band. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And he would always say, he's like, you know, well, blood is thicker than water. I know I'm not going to get the gig. You know, Jason Bonham is going to get the gig, but he said Jimmy Page came to one of his clinics once and had a Zeppelin medley worked into his clinic anyway. And he sees in the back, like Jimmy Page is up there holding up his phone. And he's like, I'm now having these panic attacks. Like, what if I didn't play the groove perfectly or whatever? And I think he had filled in for Aerosmith for a while too. Like it sounds like up to that point, he just bumped shoulders to everyone, and nothing quite stuck. And he talked about like with Extreme, like the band broke up like right after he got in it. And it just sounded like a ton of close calls for him. And like, you know, he must have got some rumor that maybe someone mentioned throwing him in that gig. But yeah, anyway, it was really cool to see how prepared he was and to just witness that up close and then see those audition videos. Mm-hmm. And it was so clear watching those videos that he was the guy for the band.
For Dream Theater.
Yeah, the Dream Theater one. You know, the other guys were really phenomenal. But it's like, no, it's like Mike's got it. He knows the songs inside out. He knows, you know, every little, really interesting guy.
So viewers, there was if you go online right now to YouTube, not now, after the show. So stop. There's a Dream Theater drummer audition video if you haven't seen it yet. And in there they have replacing Mike Portnoy in Dream Theater. They have Mike Mangini auditioning, Virgil Donati. I can't remember all the players. Derek Roddy.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see all these top players on how they deal with auditioning for bands. And I found myself really rooting for Mike Mangini. I love the guy. He's hyper. He's, like you said, a freak. I got his instructional video, the most recent one he put out. I can't remember the name of it. Mm-hmm. I can't watch it because I can't follow it. It's like, just play, man. Just play.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, first you do this. You go 50 over 75 and add 128 on. You know, it's like, what?
Yep. Yeah, and his books are written in binary. I don't know if they're in print anymore, but I don't know if you've seen them. Like most of the book doesn't use normal notation. It's in binary.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like if you want to take like one E and a 2 and, it would be like 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 0. Like, yeah, and then that's just how it's all written out. Like, okay, yeah, yep. So there's.
Well, enough about Mike. It was great talking to Mike. I appreciate you talking about that. I got to talk about you. You're the one who we're here about today. So one of the things that I've been so impressed with you is your endless supply of rhythms and beats. You've been putting together these drum loops. Oh, nice. I'm gonna play and one of the drum loops, of course, is the one we're using for Minnesota Drummer.
Sure.
I want to play your trailer right now, so for the viewers can become familiar with you, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how you put those together. And I got to talk about your drum collection. So
okay, yeah.
Video.
Cool.
Fantastic video. I got a bazillion questions, but the first question I have to ask you right away is, I heard a rumor that Pachyderm Studios is no longer in business. Is that true?
I do not know. I've heard from someone that COVID was really tough on them.
Okay.
But I don't know. Because after doing this, so this session is probably 2 years old now. But I had emailed him a couple times, like, "Hey man, if you need some extra hands up there, let me know." And I just wanted to spend more time around studios. I said, even if you need just help cleaning, I just want to be around, And he's like, "Yeah, I'll get back to you," And so I don't know. I know historically it's been just kind of tossed around in a lot of different hands. For a while, I saw some old posts on forums of it. Someone was going to buy it and get rid of the studio part itself, which I think would be a tragedy. But I don't know what the status is on it right now. I hope it's still going, and I hope if not, someone could pick it up, because that place is that's amazing.
Okay, well, so for the audience, Alec has been recording multiple volumes for this drum loop library. For different artists to be able to use his beats for their music. And for me, even just if you listen to it also, it's just kind of fun to hear what beats you're coming up with and give you more ideas for application as a player yourself. So how many volumes will there be in total when you're completed with this?
There will be 8, might be 9, but 8. And they're almost they're all done. I have them on my computer sitting in front of me. But I'm gradually finishing building the website, and it's almost finished. And it's been really interesting to do this, because now I have much more empathy for like songwriters releasing albums, because like this takes forever. And the recording, going into it, I thought that was going to be the big expense, 4 days or and flying up an engineer and. And it's like, nope, it's the promotion. That's the expensive part, and doing all that other stuff. And, yeah, it's, I would bet I'll have it up and running in probably within a couple of weeks, actually. The website is almost complete. You can see, I think, 7 of them right now on the website to flip through them, but it's just getting a couple more uploads and polishing little links and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
How long is each CD, or how many different beats can people choose from?
Sure. So each one you're going to get, there will be 5 to 7 kits. And then within each of those, it usually kind of depends on the session, but you'll probably get 10 to 20 loops out of those. And then, so within each kit, it's going to be a set of stereo loops that are already mixed by my friend Sonny DePurry is his name. He's my roommate from school. He's an awesome engineer in LA. A stereo mix one, and that's the easy one if you just want to drop it in and be done with it and have a good sounding mix. And you can use that for your songwriting or your demo or your album or whatever. And then, or there'll be multi-track unmixed loops. So if you want to mix it yourself. And then there's also, at the end of each session, we just sat and recorded one shots, which are, we just hit the snare, wait, so you can slice those up if you want to create your own beats or fills or whatever.
Wow.
So there's a ton of content. I was a little stressed when we were done. It was 3 or 4 12-hour days, and it was like, I was worried after, like, somehow we're gonna come up short, and I asked him, like, what do we get? He's like, dude, we got like 56 sessions, and I was like, oh, that's actually like a ton. Like, oh no. So, and then then you got having to hire someone to edit them down and chop them up and transferring massive files because they're high quality. The WAV file itself. Right. So, and then gigabytes of downloads. It was a big project. I'm glad I'm doing it. I'm glad I've done it. But yeah, it's a big project.
So within all these, we saw many of the drums. We'll talk about those in a minute.
Sure.
But your use of sound sources, putting T-shirts or shirts over drums, and using different types of sticks or instruments to be able to hit your drums with. What was the process to go through thinking about what instruments you're going to use and then what you're going to strike them with?
Sure. So like going into that, I remember, I had the dates booked and I was a little stressed out. I'm like, okay, this is kind of expensive. And, I had prepared a few ideas of things I wanted to hit. And Sonny and I, we had tossed back some ideas of like, well, let's capture a vibe of like maybe this song or this artist. So we used a few of those as reference points.
Okay.
But mostly, honestly, it was like I've always been able to just like sit down with a new piece of equipment and just kind of start playing and messing around, and all of a sudden half an hour goes by kind of thing. If I got a new cymbal or something. And so I prepared some stuff, but largely it was like, I'm just going to bring every drum I own, pack it all in the van. They got a bunch of drums and cymbals down there too. And we set them all out, and it's like, we're just going to set up kits, and I'm just going to jam.
Wow.
And yeah. So it was easily the most creatively taxing thing I've ever done. When I came home after it, it was like my brain was just like a static channel. It was just, and my wife was like, "Are you okay?" And it was just like I can't even think. And it was stressful too, because you want to make it as efficient as possible, because dollar bills are just flying out the window the whole time. And it was just like throw up the kit and like, man, this thing rolls. This is a cool old Gretsch kit, and or there was like one kick drum there that had like been in a fire. It looked like it was like burnt up, and it was like, but it sounded really funky, and it's like, yeah, let's do something weird with this. And then so I jammed for a little bit. He'd kind of throw on a click that was about the average of what I was doing, and then I'd play to the click till I was done. Sometimes it's just a minute, sometimes it's 20 minutes, and that would be the session, and that was the performance, and that would get cut up to be making the loops. So it's a lot of just drawing inspiration from the equipment itself, actually.
Well, did some of your Berklee composition training help you when you're compiling your beats?
I don't know. I wasn't thinking of it at the time, but I would say, I was certainly aware of like song form while I was doing it. I wasn't like imagining necessarily a song in my head as I was doing it, but I was kind of like, well, let's start with what would be a verse or an intro, and then maybe a pre-chorus type thing, just like elevating it kind of in tiers. That's what I kind of did. So like either velocity, like tight hi-hat, loose hi-hat, ride, bell, crash. So step it up or make it busier, and then throw in curveballs, like, so this could be a bridge or a break or something like that. And then some kind of ending. That was always the thing. We always had to tack on an ending because the loop you can't just snip off the end. There's got to be something on the end. But yeah, it was a crazy few days for sure. Yeah.
Well, where I was going to go with that next was, your drums. So you tune your drums really loose. I have to say, to me, that's really unique. And you're using a lot of concert tom scenario with that. So why are you attracted to detuning your drums so they're kind of like almost not dead sounding, but really flat sounding, not resonant?
Right. So I find a lot of times in studio settings, and maybe it's just a trend nowadays. I find kind of a lot of the guys my generation and younger are going to that sound, and you'll see it branded. I mean, it seems like everything in the music, instrument market, it's like vintage. Everything's vintage, and I think people are really going back to that, like Ringo Starr put towels on the tom thing in the studio. Like the big fat snare product, that thing is everywhere now. Just like the fat snare thing. I think the trend is going towards that right now, and I think it's because of home studios. I think like getting that 90s like super clean, like Pearl Masters drum kit in a beautiful studio, that's really expensive to get. And I think when you're at home, you can dive into that like kind of lo-fi, dead sounding thing pretty easily. And I think that's why that's catching on. And I'm just kind of following that, I guess, and I like a lot of that old stuff too. Just kind of using, there's my cat back there.
Hey, cat.
Yeah, just going for that kind of, older dead sound. But I also, I pretty much only do that in recording. Live, I'm pretty much just leave them wide open. I'll maybe put a little gaff tape on stuff. Sometimes I'll have a fat snare like off to the side, but usually I just let them rip live.
Well, also, you're not an extremely hard hitter.
Right.
You seem to have a lot of nice, really good control. And really loose when you're playing. Are you using 5B sticks?
So I'm. It's funny you asked that. I use. Actually, I got some right here. Vader. They're called the Extreme Design 5A. The logo's worn off. But they're really long. I've always liked really long sticks with like a obnoxious barrel tip. So it's like I'm sacrificing sound quality for quantity a bit, which is like a little bit opposite everything I feel like I should be doing. But yeah, because I'm not a slammer. I'm not playing up here and doing all that. And I have always felt like I got to have power in reserve. So I use big sticks. I use big cymbals. My drums are tuned wide open. Like I always feel like I got to be ready to blast if I need to. And when people sit down to my kit, they always like, man, everything feels heavy. Like that's a huge cymbal. Like those are 16-inch hi-hats. Your pedals are really tight. Like it's, but it's just so I have it in reserves. And I feel like one thing I do hear back from bandmates a lot is like, you make us sound bigger. They don't necessarily say better, but they say you make it sound you make it sound bigger. You have a big sound, like just big drums, bigger cymbals, and like, yeah, the organ Hammond 3 starts wailing, you get the Ampeg cab next to you. It's like, I got to have a 24-inch ride cymbal to compete with that. I've never liked 20s. 16-inch crashes to me are, I'll take 2 of them, make hi-hats out of them kind of thing. And I see that too, I think with, people playing the A-level stuff, just using bigger drums now. So I'm just kind of, that's where it's at. Maybe someday like the 90s sound, splash cymbals and that kind of stuff will come back. I don't know who'd be the first to do it. But I've always liked big cymbals, and maybe the jazz guy in me has kind of cemented that. Like I love Tony Williams' ride cymbal sound. I don't know who doesn't, but I try to bring that into a rock setting as much as possible.
Well, can you speak to the 16-inch hi-hats? Because What was interesting is for a while we had the micro hats going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then quickly we went to the size 16 as becoming a norm for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then that disappeared. And then I heard this one story about Steve Ferrone that he was actually using a 16 and then an 18-inch pair of hi-hats.
Yep. Yep.
And I thought that was ridiculously cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of people want to have smaller hi-hats so they're tighter and crisper.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like handling a 16-inch hi-hat in comparison to a 14?
You know, honestly, I love it. And I wouldn't go back at this point. Like I first started like noticing it. I saw Steve Jordan doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Old DVD. He had 17s. I remember reading a Modern Drummer article, Doug Clifford, CCR, and he said, I use 16s, you know, they just blend or something. I don't know what it was, the volume, I don't know. Thomas Pridgeon was using like 18s for a while. I just started noticing J.J. Johnson, John Mayer had 18-inch Constantinoples, I think.
Wow.
And I remember a few years ago, I was like, well, I kind of want to try that because I just had 14s. But I only, the next size I had was two 18-inch crash cymbals. And I'm like, that's a little ridiculous, but I'll try it. And I started bringing that to gigs, two 18s. And I was like, this rules. Like you totally lose the chick sound. But in exchange for that, it's like you pick up another ride cymbal. Like you can control it and you can ride it a little more. And it just blends. Instead of being this high-pitched thing that's above it all, it just, something about it just blends lower and sits in the mix a little differently. I've seen like interviews with Kenny Aronoff saying the same thing. I think he's kind of uses 15s. I just started spotting it more and more, and I'm kind of like, I think this is like a thing. We all get marketed 14 hats.
Right.
All the dudes, the A-level stuff, like they're using 15 at least. So it's like, yeah, this is part of that sound. I gotta get in on this. But yeah, it just blends a little more. And I got these thicker ones now. Zildjian calls them, you know, the light hat, but there's nothing light about them. They're really thick. And so I picked up a little more of that foot chick sound out of them. But yeah, they're great. I use them for jazz too. Even like it's like I don't even miss that chick sound. It's just like.
Have you tried the new Sabian Ankh hi-hats?
No. What are those?
So I heard them a year ago. I got to demo them at this one drumming thing. It was the drum set guitar convention that we had in Minnesota that was kind of set up by Twin City Drum Collective, as well as guitar. What's that mean, guitar store? Well, it doesn't matter. Guitar it's a secondary instrument anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
The hobby instrument.
And if a guitarist is mad at me right now, you shouldn't be watching this anyway.
Right.
No. But they just sound amazing. And so when I heard your hi-hat sound, which I fell in love with, the Ankh cymbal sounds a lot like that. And what's interesting about it, they're more of a hand-hammered, kind of rustic-looking hi-hat. They're thicker.
Okay.
I can't remember the sizes. I thought it was 14, but I could be wrong. But the bell is like, you know, like the Peisty Mega Bell.
Yes, I have seen those. Yeah, they look like something totally different.
Yeah, and they sound so amazing. So if you get a chance, I think they'd be a perfect symbol for your sound.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you do cross, you know.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'll play whatever company I'm. Yeah. No, that's right. I have seen those. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because remember they look like there's like you're taking two bells and put them. Yeah. That also
looks like a UFO.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. No, I'll have to check those out. You know, they man. I mean, Sabian's got some great stuff. I like Zildjian and Istanbul have kind of been my favorites. Istanbul has been really creeping up in my, I don't know, dethrone Zildjian for me at some point. But Sabian makes some beautiful cymbals, man. Like they have, I remember I sat in once on this dude's kit and he had, they were called the Free Cats, like FREQ.
Okay.
And they got a weird lathing pattern on them. But they had such a cool, tight hi-hat sound. I was like, man, this rules. Like this is the sound. You know, like I should get a set of these just for, you know, recording or something. But yeah, Sabian is I mean, I like that, you know, I don't know who knows what their family dynamic with the Zildjian Sabian thing is, but I'm glad they both exist now because you can tell they're competing on a creative, you know. I mean, think of what cymbal selection was pre-2000, you know,
Right.
like,
right.
And now it's bonkers. You can get anything. They got holes in them and, jingles hanging off them. They probably make 50 kinds of hi-hats, each company, So.
Right. Well, hey, before we get going too far into this, I need to play a song so people can see what you've been doing. We talked earlier about the 21st century. I got the same. Did I have that name right?
21st century schizoid man. Yep.
Schizoid man.
King Crimson.
So can you introduce the song and then I'll play it?
Sure. Yeah. So this is Galactic Cowboy Orchestra playing 21st Century Schizoid Man. It's a cover of a King Crimson song. And we usually finish the show with this one. And this is the song where I usually run out of gas, because this is the end deal. But anyway, yeah, just check it out. We'll chat about it in a second here.
hope you're enjoying this episode with Alec Tackmann of Minnesota Drummer Live. This is a weekly show that's on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. View it live, streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Next week, my guest will be the incomparable Mario Dawson. Be sure not to miss it. In the 1980s, Eccentric Systems developed a cam for bass drum pedals, becoming the standard design for many of today's pedals, including the popular GW9000 series of pedals. The Quick Torque cam is an aftermarket add-on that can be installed on just about any pedal without any permanent modification. Its unique adjustable design maximizes the efficiency of any force you apply to the pedal, returning the beater 30% faster while providing more impact. This is a cost-effective way to breathe new life into your existing pedals. Be eccentric. Visit eccentricsystems.com to get yours today.
Fantastic performance. I gotta say, I really admired your ride stack. I have never seen that before.
Okay. Yeah. That's a, so I brought that in for this band. I had normally never done one before. A lot of their songs, so this would be back to Mark and Billy, they had China cymbals on part of their kit. And a few of those songs, it was like, man, this is just such a part of the song. I need to have something. I'm not crazy about China cymbals myself anymore, but I had a 20-inch Zildjian Crash of Doom. And I put on top of that an 18-inch Zildjian breakbeat ride. So that's the one sitting in the center there. And that kind of gives it that raw kind of hiss sound. So it's like a China cymbal and a hi-hat at the same time. Okay. And then later on I brought in, it's kind of dark in that video, but I got one of those spiral crashes that hang down, and that's that almost acts like a gong. So if there's a big change in the song, I'll go for that guy. But yeah, the stack is kind of a cool thing. And I've got so used to having that there now on the right. I think it's just going to be kind of part of my kit now for everything, The ride cymbal's a little farther away now, but it's a 24, so it's, it's not that far,
So what 24-inch, what model, do you know?
That was a 24-inch K light ride. And unfortunately, it was because it got wrecked by baggage handlers, just a few months ago.
How do they wreck a cymbal?
I had it in a cymbal vault, and they must have slammed it down hard because the crack was like perpendicular to the tonal groove. So it's not like a crack that, like in the middle of the cymbal, it didn't go to the edge. So I imagine, because that little pin that goes through the cymbal, and then I think it just got set down really hard. And that thing was my main ride for 10 years. I think I've taken that thing everywhere. It's been in every important show, and it's got a crack in it now. So I got a 24-inch Constantinople light ride to replace it, which I've been trying that one out. I only had a few months of using it before all this COVID stuff happened. And the Constantinople is interesting. It's thicker than the light ride. It's a way more aggressive pingy rock cymbal than I thought it would be. And it's really loud. Like those Constantinople cymbals are super efficient. So I got to recalibrate a little bit, kind of how much I dig into it. But yeah, that was an awesome cymbal. That 24-inch K light ride. I'm probably going to get another one at some point because I kind of miss it,
You still have it, though, right?
Say what?
You still have it, right?
I still have it, yeah. And if you play it quietly, you can't hear the rattle, but as soon as you start digging in, it just it starts doing that. So,
well, if the cymbal's ruined, one thing I haven't done in years, but what you should do is you should cut these reliefs. So get like 5 big reliefs out of it. Oh, sure. And lay it on top as another stack, and you still be able to maintain your bell. But you might get a secondary vibrason. And now it's your cymbal. Yeah. I can easily tell you to do these things. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, that's what I was thinking. Is like, I got to cut this into something weird, or maybe I could just take it, morph it into a 16 and make it a bottom hat or something. Because I had one before that too that I bought with a crack in it, and the crack stayed mostly, and then eventually it got kind of out of control. So what I did is I just drilled a bunch of rivets into the ends of the cracks. So then it kind of acts like a sizzle cymbal. And that one's pretty cool. I love rivet cymbals. I usually have one kind of at all times, but so yeah, it'll get chopped up someday, some way.
So let's get to your drum set collection. I didn't realize we're already up to nearly an hour. and we always try to keep the show right around an hour. But I'm having a great time talking with you. So, let's quickly talk about your drum set collection. How many drum sets do you have?
I don't know. I guess I've got 2 in the basement. I got for teaching lessons. That's usually a Tama Star Classic. That was kind of my first nice kit. I didn't get probably a nice kit till after college.
Okay.
I've got a Gretsch Brooklyn that I use for lessons usually too, or I'll take it to gigs. It's a nice kit, and it's in like a limited edition color. So I'm like, that it like makes me afraid to take it anywhere. So I use it for lessons. And it's nice to have students playing on nice stuff so they can just appreciate, something a little upscale. I've got that 76 Vistalite. That's the one from the video. That's been my main axe for the last 4 years. I love that thing. It's loud and it looks cool on stage, and a heck of a restoration job that took a lot of work. But I've got a white Vistalite. It's not clear. It's just like the opaque white.
Solid, yeah.
Yep. And that one gets used for recording. I've got a 50s Gretsch. It's called a Harlequin semi-pro kit. And it's just a kick drum and a snare, and then it came with 2 little cowbells and a woodblock. Those calfskin heads on it. That one records great.
Wow.
Those are probably the cool ones, I would say. Random cocktail kit, little gigging kit kind of stuff here and there. But those I'd say are the main ones. And then probably, 20 snare drums. The snare drum thing is weird with me. Like, I feel like those just like find me. It's weird. Like, it's like someone is like, hey man, I got this, this cool old Slingerland or something. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take it, or you want, just like, it's snare drums. It's a collection thing, I think, at this point. Like, I tell myself it's for recording and different sounds, and I use them a lot differently, but yeah, it's collecting.
So I just did a post this week on if you prefer wood or metal snares. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite snare out of your collection? And ultimately, do you prefer metal snares or wood snares?
Yeah, favorite in the collection.
Or favorite couple? Yeah,
I don't know if I can pin down. I usually like metal snares, even though I'm using an acrylic in that video. The acrylic actually sounds great. I thought that snare would be like a junker. I was for some reason under the impression that an acrylic snare drum would be rough, but put clear heads on it. I did it for looks, but I'm like, well, it makes more of a pop sound than a crack. It's pretty cool, so I kept that. I love that sound. I've got the classic Ludwig snare drums. I don't have a Black Beauty, but I have an Acrolite and a Superphonic. I use both of those pretty often.
Okay.
I've got a knockoff Black Beauty Piccolo that I pretty much always go for. But I'd say those are probably the main ones. I have a.
Well, do you have any vintage?
Yeah, I've got the 50s Gretsch snare from that Harlequin kit. I've got a 60s Gretsch. That one's interesting because it's like super dead. It's a little bit out of round. I think a lot of old Gretches are.
Yeah.
I've got a Slingerland, an old Radio King. That thing definitely has a special vibe about it. I'm trying to think for old stuff. That's probably it. I've got a couple Stave newer ones. One I was really looking forward to starting using this year because actually a student of mine is getting into drum building. He's 17, and I actually had some unfinished Stave shells around from a friend of mine. And he's like, well, I'll finish those. I'll machine them down and cut the bearing edges and whatever. And he showed me all these ones that he had already built himself. And he wants to start his own drum company and all this. And I'm like, dude, this is killer. He brought it back to me, and this is as good as anything else. And so I put the hardware back on it, and that's a walnut Stave. So yeah.
Can you tell the audience a little bit what a Stave snare is?
Okay, yeah. So most drums you see, wooden ones, are made from a ply. They shave off ply off a tree, and then they'll steam bend the plies because they're real thin and easy. And most drums are going to be 6, 8, 10 ply. Sometimes they'll shove in what they call reinforcement rings in there as well to help maintain the roundness of them. And that's most drums you see in the world. A Stave drum is they make vertical blocks and in a circle, and then you glue them together, and then you got to machine it out So it's an actual circle and cut it from there. So what you get with the stave shell is the drum is made of more wood versus a ply shell. There's a lot more glue in there between all those plies. So you're getting a drum that's more, higher percentage of wood. So that's kind of I'd say, it's a little more of a boutique kind of thing, but there's also just a difference in the sound. I don't know if I can describe how it is, but it's woodier. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because a lot of times they do them with hardwoods, more dense woods, and they're thicker shells. So they're up to, I've seen them 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick.
Yeah.
Stave shells, versus, like a 6-ply, which is probably 3/8.
Yeah, that's pretty thin. Yeah.
3/8 or whatever, 7/16. So do they project more? Are they like sonar drums that are thicker? They project. The Vista lights, one thing I love about the old Vista lights, the retro, was that they actually project versus resonate. Yep. So is a stave drum like that?
I guess I would actually be curious to know, the science behind it. Is it more decibels? I don't know. I find it's a little bit drier. Like it takes away that kind of ping overtone a bit and just kind of leaves you with the smooth, dry sound. I suppose any drum you can crank up. I mean, I think a lot of snare drum tones that people kind of freak out about in drumming history, like Pearl Jam, like the Brady stave snare drum, I think crept into many studios, like Steve Jordan, like these high pitched crack. I think it's just cranked up stave snare drum. They sneak them in. The thing that's a little sketchy about them is like, if you drop them, I think they can crack really easily, and then you just ruined a pretty expensive drum that took a lot of labor to make. So mine pretty much just lives at home. I don't take them out very often.
Well, I want people to see you play.
Sure.
We put together this another sample piece. You sent me a number of short videos. I put them together. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the videos that we're going to see in this next piece?
Sure. So we saw the Galactic Cowboy Orchestra one. That again is the main act. In there I've got one with me playing with Davina and the Vagabonds in Sierre, Switzerland. It's a little older video, so it's going to be lesser quality. It's from like 2012 or 2013. And that was, crazy experience being in that band, doing all that traveling. And then there's a one with Jenn Bostic. That's a closer GoPro one. A song of hers called Lamp. I'm trying to think what else. There might be a home studio one in there as well. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Chat about it.
There's a home studio one in there, and just for viewers too, if you visit Alec's Facebook page, he's been going through his book series with different rhythms for the Go and Practice 1, 2, 3 books that he wrote. And this is kind of one of your demonstrations of you doing that.
Okay, yep, that's right. That's in there too. Yep. So a little bit of everything. So cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Okay.
This one, we flipped the direction of it, and now an accent is happening on all the upbeats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I think that makes it just so much hipper. So now we have this. 2, 3, 4. So to start this one off, if you're not used to it, just do it on the practice pad, just do it on the snare. And then underneath that, you can set up a foot ostinato of just like some basic quarter notes to get you going. Left foot, right foot, doesn't matter. What you want to hear is that triplet.
That was a great sampling of different things that you do. So thank you very much. I love you are so relaxed when you play. It's really refreshing to see. A lot of people are tight and they're really kind of going for it, but you're so relaxed. And it seems like in these more recent years, you've actually been raising your hi-hat. Am I seeing that correctly?
Oh yeah, I would say yeah. I'm trying to get a little more, stop being the timid guy down here, So yeah, I'm raising the hi-hats a little more, the cymbals a little more, and just trying to get a little more of that going on. Yeah.
So in my case, I'm a rock metal guy.
Sure.
So I've actually been taking my hi-hat and bringing it down so I can get more top articulation.
Sure.
So if you have your hi-hat a little higher, what are you doing to be able to compensate for the height to be able to get that articulation?
I don't know if a whole lot has changed on a technical end. I would say I'm kind of finding I got to be able to hit the edge of it and the top of it. So if I'm doing 1 and 2 and 3 and like an accent pattern, so that kind of thing, as long as I can access both of those, then it's cool. And then also, I wouldn't say raising it has been for the hi-hat technique itself, but getting out of the way of the backbeat hand swinging a little more.
Okay.
And then also just a practical purpose of getting out of the snare drum mic a little bit more. So just kind of for isolation. I think I've been doing a lot more recording the last 5 or so years and just kind of honing in that skill. And in that, engineers always are nice and hey, just set up how you want to do and we'll work around you. But I just found you just got to put your cymbals higher and get them out of those mics. It just makes everything sound better. So part of it is just making it easier on who's ever running sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So I'm trying to, I want to get a couple more things in before we go.
Sure.
Specifically, can you talk about your GoAndPractice books?
Sure.
You wrote these. Why did you write the series of books?
So, I kind of, it started off with pretty much 2 ideas. One was I started my YouTube channel, it's probably pushing 10 years ago now, for making videos for my students to use if they're at home and they maybe forgot what I'd been talking about or how it went. And it actually started, the very first video is actually me demonstrating some brush patterns because brushes are so hard you can't write them out, Mm-hmm. And those videos started to gain traction of their own on YouTube. I didn't want to be a YouTube guy, on drumming and all that. But a couple of the videos pushed over 100,000 views and I was like, man, this is nuts, But YouTube changed their what they favor for being in the suggested bar. That's basically how you strike gold, is to get in the recommended videos bar. Okay. And they started to can smaller, lower quality videos like mine, and that's why YouTube is basically television now, But
right.
So I got kind of booted out of that. And then it's well, I gotta do something with this now. So I wrote the book 3, which had basically all those licks and fills written out, and then I dumped the Amazon link into the description of all those. And then the first book I wrote because I don't like most of the beginner drum methods out there. So that came out of my teaching, trying to get kids to start off. I'd be using Alfred's drum method and all these other ones, and I'm always going in there and scratching off things, saying, no, don't do that, ignore that, and I'm gonna write my own book, whatever. And then so I had those 2, and then I wrote the second book to kind of meet them in the middle, kind of make it more of a series. So the first book I kind of wrote for myself and just for my students. I still obviously sell to everyone. Right. And then the third book was more of like a personal, this is what I do, and then if you like my drumming, buy this book. And it was made with no regard of easy or difficult. It was just this is my stuff, here you go. So it's a little different style, but yeah, it's been crazy doing the whole thing with the books and the YouTube, because some of the people, I've met and connected with through that, it's cool when every once in a while you see a comment on there and you go into their profile and you're like, whoa, I've heard of this person, or you see your list of people who are subscribed to you and it's oh man, that's, there's some cool names out there. And you forget all drummers out there, top to bottom, if you're hardcore, you're hardcore. You sit on YouTube all day and you watch videos all night, and you're just like always checking on forums and doing all this stuff, So it's been really neat, seeing, getting to meet people out there, and even like the rare occasion I'll run into a fan. Like, it doesn't happen that often. I'm not saying I got a bunch of fans, but a handful of times being on the road, I'll go to a show and someone will come up to me like, "Hey man, you're Alec, hey, I love your channel," or something. And I'm like, "Yeah, cool." Yeah. Like, finally someone came to see the drummer, it's really cool.
So if people want to buy those books, where can they go?
Primarily Amazon will be the quickest one. They're usually in stock at Revival Drum Shop in Portland. And then at Music Mart in Rochester, they'll have them. There's some tricky stuff going on there with like dealing with inventory and sales tax and red tape that involves all that. But the quickest way is just click on Amazon and you'll see it in 2 days. And then that's for US and Europe, and then everywhere else in the world they're on Kindle. So that for them it's digital. Okay.
And so where can people find you on the web? What's your website?
Just alectackmann.com. So AlecTackmann. So 2 N's on Tackman. And they can just Google it. A bunch of stuff will come up.
Well, awesome. Well, again, we went way over. It's just been such a pleasure to talk to you.
We'll do round 2.
Definitely. We got to get you on again. We can talk around about the rest of the 2020, or we can do a retrospective later on.
Sure. Yeah, there you go.
But you take care. And again, thank you so much for your time. And again, please, people, follow Alec. It's been such a pleasure to be able to have your beats on our show. They meant a lot. They bring a lot to the show. Cool. And I think you're a fantastic creative player. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for using those and doing all of this. I think this is really cool, the whole Minnesota drummer thing. What a cool project. It's cool to just go on there and check out all the local players and, I remember that, I've heard his name and see what they're all about. Thank you for doing this.
Of course. We take care, and I will talk to you soon. And everyone who's watching right now, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you have any additional questions for Alec or myself, just leave a comment or send me a message or Alec on his Facebook. So until next time, see you.
Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying this episode with Alec Tackmann of Minnesota Drummer Live. This is a weekly show that's on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. View it live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Next week, my guest will be the incomparable Mario Dawson. Be sure not to miss it. Opening beats provided by Alec Tackmann. You too can own this fantastic multi-volume library of live drum loops and samples. Whether you're a drummer looking for new ideas or a songwriter looking for a drum loop library, this is the library you're looking for. Support a local musician and drummer. Go to Alec Tackmann's website. That is www.alectackmann.com. Spelled AlecTackmann. Are you looking for a drum instructor that will help you find your own musical voice? Whether you're a beginner, advanced, or in between, the David Stanek School of Drumming offers an experienced and professional approach to help you take control of your drumming. David served on the faculty of McNally Smith College of Music for 27 years. Currently, he serves on the Percussive Art Society Drum Set Committee and is a member of the Modern Drummer, Remo, and Vic Firth education teams. David has authored multiple books including Mastering the Tables of Time. It was voted the #1 education book in the Modern Drummer 2009 Readers Poll. Let David help you find your beat. Please visit www.davidstanekschoolofdrumming.com. David Stanek is spelled DAVIDSTANOCH, schoolofdrumming.com. Again, the David Stanek School of Drumming. You've been listening to Minnesota Drummer. Minnesota Drummer is copyright 2020, all rights reserved. Any content played or viewed during this broadcast is used with permission, is copyright of the respective owners, and is used for promotional purposes only. No part of this broadcast can be edited, reproduced, and cannot be sold. Please look us up and follow us on our various social media sites. You can follow us at minnesotadrummer.com. There you'll find our contact forum where you can give us feedback and recommend a drummer. Thank you for listening.